afternoon.
My name is Rajahmundry. I am from D1. Actually, I want to ask about అంటే ఇప్పుడు ఇండియా అనేది కంట్రీ అంటే మన ఇండియా కంట్రీ అనేది ఇండియా అనేది పేరు అనేది వచ్చింది కదా సార్. అంటే ఇప్పుడు భారత్ అనేది చేంజ్ చేస్తున్నారు కదా సార్. భారత్ అనేది అసలు ఇప్పుడు సడన్గా ఎందుకు భారత్ అనేది చేంజ్ చేస్తున్నారు అని ఏం కాదు అసలు.
As you know, Bharat అనేది it's already there in the constitution. India, that is Bharat. So apparently there is nothing new about this effort, but I think government is giving a focus in terms of Bharat because the present government has always been speaking of the culture, heritage and the importance of ancient Indian traditions, etc. Opposition is united under the banner India, so they are trying to conquer it by bringing in this Bharat. So in terms of any legal or constitutional change, there is nothing new. It is already there. Probably government is focusing more because India is associated with the opposition. Government is now wanting this term Bharat. That's all. I don't see much of a difference. Yeah.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'm Lekna from I2 from Rajahmundry. సో నా క్వశ్చన్ ఏంటంటే ఇప్పుడు బీజేపీ టెన్యూర్ మొదలైనప్పటి నుంచి మన కంట్రీలో రైట్ వింగ్ ఫండమెంటలిజం అంటే హిందుత్వ అన్నది పెరుగుతుంది కదా సార్. దాని మీద మీ ఒపీనియన్ ఏంటి సార్?
My own understanding is it's only spoken of rather than manifest in any very rigorous practice. Particularly as far as South is concerned, I do not think there is much of a change that is happening. Whenever it suits a particular dispensation, they are making use of it. But probably except in some syllabus of some schools, syllabus of some colleges, I do not think that fundamentalism is very strongly being integrated. But there is a criticism. As a reaction, there is a criticism from certain quarters that there is a lot of fundamentalism which is cropping up. But if you look at any legislative or institutional changes, I don't think anything has happened significant. It's only a matter of perception, but perceptions are also important.
బట్ ఐపీసీని న్యాయ సంహిత బిల్ కింద ఇండియన్ ఎవిడెన్స్
What happens if it is merely turned into, if you give a local name?
బట్
What's in a name? That's what poet said.
సెంట్రల్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఎక్కువ హిందీని ఎక్కువ ప్రజల మైండ్స్ లోకి ఇంపోజ్ చేసి ఇన్సిస్ట్ చేస్తుంది అన్న.
For instance, naming of a particular legislation, I don't think giving a particular name is any significant change. But what are the contents of that? Contents of these IPC, CRPC or Evidence Act. That's what we have to look at. I don't think there has been a significant change except in terms of investigation processes, in terms of the manner in which the presence of certain persons is accepted or not accepted. That is what I don't think very significant changes have been made. I would have preferred an amendment of the CRPC, IPC strongly integrating IT, but that has not happened. Information technology should have been integrated into our criminal justice system, into our civil justice system, etc. Electronic communication should have been made legal, like a WhatsApp communication should have been given a legal entity, legal recognition.
బట్ సార్ బీజేపీ టెన్యూర్కి ముందు వరకు అందరి మైండ్స్లో ఒకటే రివాల్వ్ అయ్యేది ఏంటంటే మనకి ఇండిపెండెన్స్ తీసుకొచ్చింది కాంగ్రెస్, జవహర్లాల్ నెహ్రూ, మహాత్మా గాంధీ. బట్ వెన్ ఇట్ కమ్స్ టు ద బీజేపీ టెన్యూర్ అందరూ దే స్టార్టెడ్ టు రియలైజ్ దట్ అంబేద్కర్ ఒక్కడే కాదు రాసింది కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్. ఈజ్ నాట్ ఓన్లీ ద ఫాదర్ ఆఫ్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్, ఈజ్ జస్ట్ ఎ ఫైన్ ట్యూనర్ ఆఫ్ ద కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్. అసలు రాసింది బెనగల్ నరసింహరావు అన్న రియలైజేషన్స్ దే స్టార్టెడ్ టు రియలైజ్ మీ సార్.
See, constitution, there have been a lot of people who have contributed to to the framing of the constitution. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee which looked into the constitution. So naturally some credit will go to the chairperson. But Ambedkar of course is a towering personality, there is no doubt, in terms of his ability to understand, ability to foresee, ability to look into the pros and cons. Ambedkar had a stellar role to perform. There were others, other members like B.N. Rao, Shivarao, then our own Durgabai Deshmukh. She was a member of the Constituent Assembly. All of them had a role to play. You see, a lot of this is political rhetoric aimed at elections, without much of a substantial change in the procedures. I would have expected some substantial changes in terms of the emerging procedures. I would have expected, if I were in the decision making, I would say that so many layers of administration is unnecessary. It's in the days when you have IT, a lot of functions are being performed by the government to reach out to the citizen at his or her home. There is no corresponding delegation of powers to the lower functionaries or of the grassroots. That would have meant a lot of difference to people.
ఇందాక మీరు ఐపీసీ గురించి చెప్పినప్పుడు పేరు ఒకటే కదా మారింది అని అన్నారు కదా సార్, కానీ దాంతోపాటు కొన్ని ప్రొవిజన్స్ కూడా మార్చారు కదా సార్.
Not very significant. No, the basic investigation process లో మార్పులు లేవంటున్నాను. See, it continues to be on the same footing. So we need to take a look at each one of those provisions and see at the entavaraku relevant. In fact, there was a beautiful article in the Hindu about 2-3 days back on the proposed changes, etc. You would do well to read it.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
This is
afternoon.
Anusha from I2. Sir, మీరు ఇద్దరు 2 చీఫ్ మినిస్టర్స్ కింద వర్క్ చేశారు కదా సార్, నందమూరి తారక రామారావు గారి కింద, ఇంకా జనార్దన్ రెడ్డి గారి కింద వర్క్ చేశారు కదా సార్. మీరు ఏమైనా కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్స్ ఏమైనా వాళ్ళిద్దరి మధ్యన మీరు ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ ఉంటుంది కదా సార్, 5 years డిఫరెన్స్ ఏమైనా కనిపించిందా సార్?
You see, Mr. N.T. Ramarao was basically a very emotional person. And he had a lot of feeling for a lot of people, like that we should do good for people. And he also, of course, he left a lot of Hindupur constituency issues. He was representing Hindupur. I was Deputy Secretary to Chief Minister, and my responsibility was to go to Hindupur, monitor the developmental activities and keep him informed. And I was doing it regularly, so he was very happy with some of the steps that were initiated as a result of my going to Hindupur in the mid-80s and the late 80s. For about 4 years I was going to Hindupur regularly. So all those day-to-day problems of the constituency we were able to take care. Janardhan Reddy is a man who knew the world. In terms of laukyam telisina manishiga, he is far more grounded, not an emotional person like Mr. N.T. Ramarao. Janardhan Reddy had a good equation with bureaucracy. His equation with bureaucracy was better than Mr. N.T. Ramarao. N.T. Ramarao was good to a lot of people, but he also had certain strong likes and dislikes for some. Of course, he was very affectionate to me because I was very young. I was just 33, 34 when I was working with N.T. Ramarao. So he did not have taken me seriously. He was very jovial in disposal of files. And he also had an aversion for file work. అందువల్ల మేము చెప్పినవన్నీ దాదాపుగా he was able to clear it. No chief minister can read files personally, whether it is Janardhan Reddy or N.T. Ramarao. Janardhan Reddy garu oka system create chesaru. When we prepared a note for about 10-15 files, we prepared an abstract. This also we started towards the end of our tenure with N.T. Ramarao, but Janardhan Reddy garu ఆ నోట్స్ రాసి ఆ నోట్స్ మీద మాకు కామెంట్స్ రాస్తే ఆయన ఎప్పుడు టైం ఉంటే ఆ ఒక కాగితం మీద సంతకం పెడితే it meant that all the 10 or 15 files covered in that note would have been approved. So that system helped. Whereas ఎన్టీ రామారావు గారు పొద్దున్నే ఫైళ్ళు పొద్దున్నే 5:30 కల్లా ఆయన వర్క్ షెడ్యూల్ వాజ్ స్టార్టింగ్. With Mr. Janardhan Reddy it was late in the night. 9:30, 10 files work started. It was going on up to 12:30 on a number of days. So extremes. Janardhan Reddy as a political leader, he knew people, he judged people, whereas N.T. Ramarao treated them with a lot of emotion, leaders style. It was basically a one-man show during NTR's time. Janardhan Reddy, it was a collective effort. Yeah.
Sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I am Neha, degree second year from Yanam. Sir, my question to you is, tell me the strategies between India and Pakistan regarding Indus water treaty.
You see, there was one officer by name Mr. Harinarayan who settled this issue as Union Water Resources Secretary. Mr. Harinarayan, who was a Chief Secretary, was also an Irrigation Secretary. In so far as Indus Water Treaty is concerned, I do not have the details of the treaty as such, but what was attempted was give and take at that time. Both this, because you are lower down, obviously water will have to flow from Pakistan to our place, like from China, the water will have to come to us. So, as far as the lower riparian country is concerned, you have not many choices. In any situation, the upper riparian state has an advantage. For instance, Krishna, it's a Karnataka state which has an advantage. You don't have many choices. Whatever water comes to you is a result of what is left by the upper riparian state. But I think it was a major treaty during I think 2004-05 ఆ ప్రాంతాల్లో ఆ ట్రీటీని వర్కౌట్ చేశారు. After that I think they went ahead and built some projects, we went ahead and built some projects. But ఈ ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ అన్నీ కూడా during normal times there is no problem. The water flows. Only when there is a scarcity, the upper riparian state is not willing to share the scarcity. They have the advantage. So it's a lower riparian state or country which suffers. So as a lower riparian country, we normally tend to suffer. But I don't think Pakistan is able to build projects. They are grappling with day-to-day issues of balance of payments, food scarcity, and internal problems of riots, etc. But Pakistan is a state which is really in distress. I don't think they are able to sort out. They have been able to come out luckily out of the BOP crisis thanks to some support extended by the IMF and other countries. So they have to do a lot of soul searching. That's why a lot of the leaders who finished their tenure in Pakistan are now speaking of rapprochement with India. They know that a lot of money is being wasted in conflicts, defense-related expenditure. Unlike our country, our defense expenditure as a portion, as a percentage of our GDP or as a percentage of our expenditure is not much. But Pakistan, it accounts for a major share. So there is hardly any money left for development left. That's the issue.
Good afternoon, sir. I am SHRI of degree second year from Palasa, Srikakulam. Sir, generally we are having a Right to Education Act which stands for the compulsory education for the children up to 14 years, and that leads to the SSC examinations. And after the completing of the board level of examinations, the children were inculcating in doing some of the other works. So now today itself we are facing a problem of lack of comprehensive sexuality education. So what the reasons and what the strategies that to overcome this?
You mean sexual education, sex education?
Comprehensive sexuality
I
education.
haven't got your question right. You're talking of compulsory right to education?
Both, sir. Generally, up to the school level of education, we are having the right to each and every person should study and should be an educated person.
Correct.
After the completing of board level of education, the people were turning themselves in the form of economic growth based on their own or based on their family situations. So this leads to the problem of comprehensive sexuality education. So what both are
You are saying that after the 14 years or after school,
yes, sir.
girls are being denied education as opposed to boys. Is there a gender bias? That's what you think?
Yes, sir.
Not to my knowledge. I've gone around. The only point being made is that girls are being admitted in government institutions, whereas boys are being admitted in some private institutions. But that also is now coming down. I don't think there is any attempt on the part of the parents today to deny education to girls. Not to my knowledge. Maybe it's there in a few families. I have not come across. I've gone around a lot of the areas in the two states, even in the tribal areas. Girls are being given education. The only point is, because of the distance or where there are no hostels, there is an issue because of the lack of. But these days, a lot of residential schools have come up even in the tribal areas. So the discrimination or the gender bias against the girls after their schooling, not in a very significant manner. It is perhaps there, but not in a very significant manner. I asked yesterday in one or two institutions whether the girls were being married off. They said all that has come down. In a tribal area, about 40 kilometers from Parvatipuram, I asked the Sarpanch herself was a lady, and unfortunately her husband died because of excessive drinking, and she has become a Sarpanch after his death. Very committed lady, and she saw that there is no fellow who drinks in that village after her tragedy. So girls being denied education after their mandatory compulsory right to education, I don't think it's there. Maybe in a very few cases, but not much. I've known of a lot of areas where the gender bias against girls is coming down. The only point is, occasionally there are girls that are being sent to government schools because you don't pay fee. In the private school you have to pay fee. That's all. I think that's a limited contribution.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Rohita from I1, sir. Recently, G20 Summit will be held in India, and it is announced that Chinese
It has
President...
already been held. It's going on. Next month, Prime Minister, November, Prime Minister is asking for another meeting. Yeah.
Chinese President, it is announced that Chinese President is not attending the G20 Summit, sir. How it will affect the bilateral relations of India and China, sir?
I don't think it will affect, because I think India became a little vocal in the last 15-20 days or 1 month because of the map published about Arunachal being part of China. I think, and India, of course, normally is rhetorical about these maps published by China, and probably China, the Jinping, he has his own problems in terms of economic crisis. There is a downturn of Chinese economy. They are not doing very well in their real estate. So maybe these are the compulsions. Or he may have thought that this is not the time to meet up with the American president. More important than India from China is America, and equally important for America is China. So I think these are the economic realities. So China is passing through its own difficult phase. Maybe that's one reason. I don't know. We have no access to very authentic information from China. We can only conjecture.
India and China got independence in the same time, sir. But if we say India's economy is still reaching the 5 trillion economy, and China had already reached the 18 trillion economy, why India is lagging in that?
Very difficult question, but The reason why we are probably not able to make the kind of difference is, unlike China, we have been ruled for a very longer period than by others. That's one. The second thing is, the Chinese somehow followed a policy of very firm handling of any dissidents. They dealt with opposition in a very ruthless manner. They went on, sorry to say, they went on killing a lot of dissidents. Something like 25 lakh people were killed in China who didn't believe with the establishment. So that must have certainly created a certain amount of fear, scare. I don't think we were prepared for that kind of a situation. If you obviously adopt very ruthless measures, you can achieve results. But for how long? And then certain initial decisions that were made after independence, we had to change them subsequently. This took some time. Those decisions were relevant at that point of time. For instance, the greater role given to public sector in the first 2-3 plans, it had to be tweaked to assimilate a certain amount of priority being given to private sector. That came in with P.V. Narasimha Rao. The ruthlessness of the regime and coupled with soft options. Gunnar Myrdal called India a very soft state in 1964. You must have heard of that book, The Asian Drama. The subtitle of that is The Poverty of Nations. So all these are, and China of course adopted a policy of one family, one child family, one child now. We didn't do that for a very long time. Though we adopted family planning, it was not mandatory. So all these are reasons, but then gradually we are catching up. We are catching up, and I'm sure next 20-30 years we'll be able to catch up where China is. China has built a huge infrastructure for industry. Their rail network is far stronger than our rail network. Their trains, they have 20,000 kilometers of train network which runs at an average speed of 300 kilometers, 20,000 kilometers. And now they are building a railway line between Beijing and London, cutting through 11 countries, and they are building it all on their own. All that because of the huge infrastructure, but they are also running into problems. But it's a very valid question, your question, why we were not able to do it. But these are all explanations. What is needed is performance. Like all of you, if you don't succeed, you will have an explanation, not a performance. So I think we should realize that and then move forward. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Santosh from Dhamnavaram. I'm currently pursuing degree No, sir, it is near Annavaram.
Okay.
I'm currently pursuing degree second year, sir. Sir, recently central government is trying to bring up one nation and one election. So what is your opinion
I
on
am
this one?
strongly in favor of it.
So what's your opinion on this one, sir?
I have so said that. I am strongly in favor of it. We are wasting too much of time on elections, public-related money being spent. And I also feel that we should opt for electronic voting where you can vote from home. In fact, I have done electronic voting reviews in 1 or 2 magazines where European countries, they've asked me from their countries. I personally feel, of course my views are very strong if you want to listen. I personally feel no canvassing should take place in an election. In these days of digital and electronic medium. Whatever canvassing you want to do, you do it in the mode, electronic mode. Everybody has a mobile phone. You can send whatever messages you want through the electronic or digital mode. It will save a lot of money. Travel, workers being taken care of, liquor consumption, all these will significantly get eliminated if you ban all kinds of physical activities associated with people coming to villages, going around, conducting meetings. All that can be done in an electronic mode. So, in any case, that's second. But the basic point is, I am all for one nation, one election. A lot of time and effort. You find union leaders, union ministry, cabinet ministers going around municipal areas for canvassing. How much of waste of time? Similarly, ministers from the state go around and do canvassing for ward elections, Gram Panchayat elections. It's a criminal waste of time.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
I am from Enter first year. Sir, I am from Rajahmundry. Sir, my question is, what are the critical skills required to be an effective IAS officer?
Truthfulness. Do not deviate from the path of rectitude. However unpleasant it is, always say that this is all that I can do, I will not be able to do anything more. You transfer me, transfer. That's all. That's number one. That will create confidence among your subordinates because they feel that you will protect them in case of a crisis. That will set your tone right with the political master. You may run into difficulties. Your superiors may not be very happy with you. For instance, if your boss is a dishonest fellow or a corrupt fellow, you would have tension. But then in the long run it pays off. So the path of rectitude, truthfulness, not having to say one thing and doing another, treating your subordinates with respect, concerned about their welfare. You should show enough empathy and concern for their welfare in their personal lives. Ultimately, their loyalty, their commitment to the cause also is important. And the biggest problem the bureaucracy has today is ego. In any bureaucracy, more so in IAS, these chaps develop a sense of self-importance over a period of 15-20 years. They become totally insular and they think that all other human beings are to be treated not with respect, etc. Ego is a biggest stumbling block today in conflict resolution. So I think these are some of the things that a good bureaucrat should have. Empathy, concern for others, path of rectitude, totally being honest all the time. And make it very clear, this is all that you can do and you cannot do anything more. You will get shifted, doesn't matter. You will get transferred, really doesn't matter. As I often say, phonu, fanu, punu. ఈ మూడు ఎక్కడికి పోయినా ఉంటాయి. Once you have them, there is no need for you to be afraid of. I was transferred to PRC, which is supposed to be a non-focal post. I was transferred to Marichanaridi Institute, again a non-focal post. But then after my retirement, I again got an opportunity for working in the government for 8 years. So the administration, the political master knows what kind of a person are you. That's the only way you live on. Unfortunately, the very aggressively self-conscious, educated IIT graduates are failing in realizing some of these factors. Professional students, their man management is leaving a lot to be left behind. And once you are not straightforward, you will always be looking to a post which can help you to raise resources directly or indirectly. Then your path of decline has started. So that is the problem. Still there are good bureaucrats, but the number of the indifferent ones is on the increase. In fact, the politician always looks to a supple and a person who will always be listening to him. Because there are people who are willing to listen. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'm P. Vinay Kumar of I2 from Rajahmundry. As an IAS officer, how did you manage or balance your work ethics and political pressure?
Luckily for me, nobody forced me to do something which I considered irregular. Which means the politician was also good. In fact, there were 1 or 2 occasions where I came into conflict with my bosses, administrative bosses, not the political masters. And because I worked with N.T. Ramarao in my very early age, and when I was in my early part of my service, I joined him when I was hardly 6 years into the service, 7 years. In my 34th year I joined him. I had the opportunity of interacting with a lot of these political leaders who themselves were brought into political life by N.T. Ramarao. So they always, subsequently whenever they interacted with me, they always had a soft corner for me. మన ఎన్టీఆర్ దగ్గర పనిచేశాడు అనే ఆ గుర్తింపుతో we were able to get along well, and most of the politicians were very good to me. In fact, they had a better appreciation of my work than even some of the bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats. Mr. V. Bhaskar Reddy was extremely nice to me when I was collector in Nizamabad. So it all depends on your equation. Mr. Srinivas, who is not well, was my college mate and school mate. He was also good. He was from Nizamabad. I was collector in Nizamabad. So as long as I was there, I think there was no problem. Though he didn't like some of my actions, I refused to listen to him in some of those. But he was at the personal level good to me. So I had never a problem with any political master. Except when you got shifted, that's okay. దాని మీ వల్ల మాకు చాలా కష్టం వచ్చేస్తుంది, మేము మిమ్మల్ని పంపించేస్తామని అనొచ్చు, దట్స్ ఓకే. యూ షుడ్ బి ప్రిపేర్డ్ టు యాక్సెప్ట్. It's your human managements, your management of the political master, even as you differ, is very, very important. You can always politely disagree, differ, and then function. But give them the respect that is due to them. He represents the people. He has the mandate of the people. He is conscious of that. He is all the time conscious of the fact that he represents the people, not bureaucrats. Give them that respect. You should give them that respect.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Banishri of I1 from Prakasham.
Your namesake got the first rank. Banishri got the first rank in Group 1.
Banishri Lakshmi. Banishri Lakshmi from Delhi University.
She studied in Lady Sri Ram College. In fact, we conducted a model interview for her. She did very well in the interview. Very balanced. Yes.
Sir, in G20 there is a discussion about the project work of Indian Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, which is connectivity between India, Arabian Gulf and European countries. How will India counter China with this strategy?
You see, that came up basically because of this Belt and Road Initiative. So India is also trying to do something to counter the Belt and Road Initiative, which is basically the bulwark of China, and they have made a lot of progress in that Belt and Road Initiative. And these are strategies which are worked in the long term. These are all accepted. But then in Belt and Road, it is the Chinese who had put in a lot of capital, because at that time they had a lot of foreign exchange. Their foreign exchange reserves are very, very high and very heavy. I don't think India can afford to do that initiative. So, but even in the Belt and Road Initiative, countries like Sri Lanka, they got a feeling that they were being also pushed into a corner. So I think Sri Lanka also gradually tried to distance itself. But I don't think they are very. I don't think there will be very, very serious consequences of that. As your economic might increases, India is also trying to assert itself in terms of its economic and political influence, so these things will happen. So basically my own feeling is that it is the initiative it's being pushed by India as a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative. That's all. Like we have the Quad, we are now trying to link up with those Quad countries, link up with Australia, link up with US, link up with Britain, etc.
So with your permission, can I ask another question?
Yeah, please.
Sir, యూసీసీ కానీ మనం చూసుకున్నట్టయితే కొంతమంది దాన్ని కావాలంటున్నారు, ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేయాలంటున్నారు, కొంతమంది వద్దు దానివల్ల ఎక్కువ కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్స్ వస్తాయి కమ్యూనిటీస్ మధ్య అని చెప్పేసి అంటున్నారు. మీ ఒపీనియన్ ఏంటి సార్?
UCC as a goal is desirable, but then, like in the case of triple talaq, there is a lot of discussion that is needed to, particularly as far as the minorities are concerned, to assuage them of the feeling that something is going to happen to them. Apprehensions, perceptions also need to change. UCC is already mentioned in the directive principles of the state policy. The constitution mentions clearly UCC. Correct. Kabatti, all of you are very good with constitutional provisions. Good.
Thank you.
I'm glad about that, but my current knowledge ఇంకా పెంచుకోవాలి, newspapers చదువుకుని. కాబట్టి the perception also needs to change. Even you see civil code, common civil code, bring the minorities into the picture. Muslim law board, call them. How was this Ayodhya sorted out? A major issue was sorted out thanks to the intervention of Supreme Court, thanks to the intervention of others. So అటువంటి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తే I'm sure the problem will get resolved. But there is need for a UCC, I mean common civil code. I am convinced, because you can't have two kinds of the personal law ఏదన్నా కానీ property related matters లో there has to be some justice, etc. అందుకనే శారదా యాక్ట్ కూడా తీసుకొచ్చి ఫస్ట్ టైం property rights were conferred on women. All credit should go to N.T. Ramarao in this state, in the undivided state, to give women the right to property, and also reservation. First state in the country to have given women the reservation of jobs. In fact, when I joined, there was not even one girl in our batch of 20 deputy collectors. Now it's dominated by women. In fact, I jokingly mentioned that after some days there will have to be reservations for men. That is the situation that is gradually emerging. So, from a situation where there were not even one girl when I joined in 76, when I was selected as deputy collector, today you have a situation where out of 20, let's say 10, almost 6 to 7 are girls. So, I think a lot of credit for this should go to the government, but it has to be a negotiated process. It cannot be. I know the government of India also is, I don't think they're talking of it for the last 2 to 3 years, not that much. The only thing they are now, I think, seriously pursuing is one nation, one election, which I'm convinced that it is needed. Otherwise, a lot of productive time is being wasted. Productive time, digital time, electronic time. You should do with one single. You can sit at home, vote for it. That's all.
Sir,
Yeah.
another question.
Yeah.
మీరు ఇందాక చెప్పినప్పుడు మెన్ కి ఇప్పుడు రిజర్వేషన్ కల్పించేలా ఉంది, ఉమెన్ కి కాదు అని అన్నారు కదా.
It's in a lighter way.
బట్ లోక్సభలో కానీ రాజ్యసభలో కానీ
Political reservation, I think no government, no party is serious about that, because it's still a male-dominated world. As far as politics is concerned, yes, that bill should have been pushed through. The reservation of seats for women should have been done long back. In fact, even Mrs. Gandhi, who herself was heading the Congress party, could not do it. She made an attempt, Sonia Gandhi, but I don't think this could be. As long as you have parties from North India who are calling the shots, I don't think it will happen. If people from the south come, perhaps a woman from the south comes, yeah, she will be able to do it.
Yes.
People from the north, I don't think will be able to do it. They still have a feudal outlook.
another question from me, sir.
Yeah.
రీసెంట్గా ఇండియా చంద్రయాన్ 3 అలానే ఆదిత్య L1ని లాంచ్ చేసింది కదా సార్.
Correct.
అది లాంచ్ చేసిన తర్వాత BBC విచ్ ఇస్ అన్ ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ఛానల్ ఒక స్టేట్మెంట్ ఇచ్చింది. ఏమని అంటే ఇండియా ఇలా స్పేస్ సైన్స్ అండ్ టెక్నాలజీ మీద కన్నా ఆ కంట్రీలో ప్రివైలింగ్ పోవర్టీ మీద ఎక్కువ కాన్సన్ట్రేట్ చేస్తే బెటర్ కదా అని.
We don't need any lessons from BBC. Let them handle their own crisis. You see, the country survived on us for 200-300 years, plundered this country. We don't need any lessons from BBC or anybody from that country. Let them handle. That country itself is getting disintegrated. They are not able to decide what to do after Brexit. Scotland is fighting, Ireland is fighting. So I don't think we need lessons from England. In fact, it's only our colonial past which is still giving them some respect. Otherwise, that country doesn't deserve any recognition in an international arena. It has to depend on all others for their food, for other needs, for their truck drivers, their nurses, etc.
Sir, another question.
Yeah.
Sir, రీసెంట్గా మణిపూర్ రైట్స్ క్రైసిస్ అవుతున్నాయి కదా సార్, అయినప్పుడు ప్రెసెంట్ ఉన్న గవర్నమెంట్ ఎందుకు సార్ మెజర్స్ తీసుకోవట్లేదు?
I think it has not been handled well. Manipur initially has not been handled well. I personally feel that the Manipur Chief Minister did not play his role well, and that has led to some crisis. But gradually, I think there were attempts made. But the initial handling of Manipur crisis was, I think, it's not something to be very happy about.
సార్ అదే క్వశ్చన్.
Yeah.
సార్ ఇండియా టెక్నాలజికల్గా ఎకనామికల్గా డెవలప్ అవుతుంది కదా సార్, సోషల్ పరంగా వస్తాడికి వై ఇంకా నేరో మైండ్ పీపుల్ ఎందుకుంటారు సార్? క్యాస్ట్ సిస్టమ్, క్యాస్ట్, రిలీజియస్ ఇవన్నీ బిలీవ్ చేస్తున్నారు కదా సార్.
Because politically it is suiting them. Don't listen to a politician when he is talking of caste. See, in pre-independent days, caste was not uppermost. There was lot of intermingling. Nobody. Now today, the first thing anybody wants to find is what is the caste of the other person. That is because it suits a politician. It suits somebody in position of power. Because for him to perpetuate or get back the power, caste is a way of a method, conduit. As long as the youngsters realize that, in fact, we all have seen that. As long as you realize that it is a personal thing, it has nothing to do with the political party, it is not to which caste this fellow belongs, to what he has done, that's what is important, or what he intends to do, or what he is planning to do. Unfortunately, it suits the political leaders, so they are perpetuated. The caste, because see, what is politics? Politics is gravitating people, and if caste serves a purpose in adding to that gravitation, I think people are making certain use of it. Okay.
ఇప్పుడు ఎవరైనా మనం క్యాస్ట్ గురించి మాట్లాడుకుంటున్నాం కాబట్టి దేర్ ఇస్ దిస్ థింగ్ దట్ చాలా వరకు ఇప్పుడు మన అందరూ రియలైజ్ అయింది ఏంటంటే ఈ క్యాస్ట్ సిస్టమ్ అనేది డౌన్వర్డ్ ఫిల్టరేషన్ అనే ప్రాసెస్లో అది మిస్ఇంటర్ప్రిట్ అయ్యింది. మీ టేక్ ఏంటి కదండి, మీ ఒపీనియన్ ఏంటి? నిజంగానే క్యాస్ట్ సిస్టమ్ అంటే నిజంగానే ఇలానే ఉంటుందా, లేకపోతే తరతరాలుగా ఇప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ జనరేషన్స్కి అందించుకునేటప్పుడు ఏమైనా మిస్ఇంటర్ప్రిట్ అయ్యిందా?
ఇప్పుడు one very good thing that can happen is an intercaste marriage. Once you have large intercaste marriages, gradually it will dissipate. అది లేనంత వరకు ఇది జరుగుతుంది. ఒకటి, politician is bound to play on caste for a very long period to come, whatever be the merits of any issue, because it suits him. ఇప్పుడు రాజకీయాల్లో ఒక ఓటు అడగాలంటే నాకున్న మెరిట్స్ చెప్పాలి, లేకపోతే నేను ఇది చేస్తానని చెప్పాలి. ఆ రెండు లేనప్పుడు ఈ కాస్ట్ వస్తుంది, అంతే కదా. అయ్యా నేను నా వాల్యూ సిస్టమ్ ఇది, నా వాల్యూ సిస్టమ్ ప్రకారం ప్రజలకి ఇది చేస్తాను అని ఎప్పుడైతే అతను చెప్పుకోలేని స్థితిలో ఉన్నాడో, ఈ లాస్ట్ ఫర్ ఓట్స్ ఆన్ ది బేసిస్ ఆఫ్ కాస్ట్, ఎనీ కాస్ట్. Thank you. Wonderful interaction with all of you.